Okay, so if we walked down into one of our bays in our service department today, we actually have a guest in today, and this was completely coincidental, not staged at all. We actually have a guest that's in today, and their service need is to completely renovate and restore a majority of their 110 volt appliances and their electrical system, because they had a contractor back home install a power box at their home, and the contractor looked at it, said, hey, this outlet kind of looks like a washer dryer, I'm going to go ahead and install it that way, but installed it as a 220 volt outlet as opposed to a 110 volt outlet. Looked very, very similar, still 30 amps, but it was a 220 system, plugged in, fried the majority of his electrical system. So this was completely coincidental, but the one thing we are going to cover today are surge guards. Surge guards are a very common accessory. There's two different ways you can do it. You can do a portable version, which is what you see here. There's two different versions that I actually have hooked up here. One is actually for the 30 amp service that comes with the Vista. This Vista has a single rooftop air conditioner, so it only has the need for 30 amps. And if you think back to one of the very, very first videos that we did, thinking about how many amps do I actually need for my coach, remember, Winnebago designs these coaches so that you could literally turn on every single 110 volt appliance that you have in that coach at one time without throwing a breaker. So the need for this coach is actually only 30 amps worth of power. So if it had the all-weather upgrade package, it would have a second rooftop air conditioner and 50 amp service. So again, two different types of surge guards, a portable version, and then we're going to cover here in a second a hardwired installation. So this surge guard is plugged into a 30 amp surge guard right now. Very simply, the difference in between the two models is this is a 30 amp. If you had a 50 amp coach, you would go to this model. Primary difference between the two is going to be price. This guy right here runs about $450. This guy right here runs about $320. Nice thing about it is that it's a fixed investment. You can take it from coach to coach. But if you saw the repair order that unfortunately the guest is going to have today on his electrical system, it probably represents about 10% of the total cost of that issue. So again, a good way to protect your coach. The main benefits is it provides protection from faulty part power, faulty resort power. It has built-in intelligence of knowing how much voltage is coming off. It will actually shut off power to your coach anytime it detects an open ground or a high neutral ground, a high neutral current, or if you have low or high voltage. So a very sophisticated portable surge guard. It actually has two different modes of surge suppression. It has a reset relay on it. It also has a delay in it so that when you actually power it up, it's going to go through and condition the power and determine how much you actually have to ensure that it's safe for your RV.
Couple questions here.
Cool.
Someone wondering if a surge guard is still effective if it's being used with a power adapter.
Yep.
And then another question wondering if a surge guard is required in a 2015 Journey 36M.
Oh, really good question. Let's cover the first one. You can utilize this with adapters. And so I'm going to fast forward to the next adapter, and then I'm going to come back and answer that Journey question. So again, this is just reading for 30 amps worth of power. So if you have, and I think this is kind of what the guest is after, if you are downgrading your power, maybe you only have 30 amp power at your resort. If you're going to downgrade from 50 amp to 30 amp, again, you'd have to have a 30 amp portable surge guard, but you very simply install it the exact same way. I haven't seen a 15 or a 20 amp surge guard protector. I'm sure they make them. One way that you can circumvent that entire equation is to install a hardwired, which we're going to cover here in a second. But again, these portable surge guards will work if you use the power adapter, but more relevantly, you'll probably want to use a hardwired if you know you're going to be toggling from different power levels, because obviously the 50 amp wouldn't necessarily work. You'd actually have to utilize another adapter beyond that. So the next question that came was on the Winnebago Journey and wanting to know if one is required. And it's a good idea to have a surge guard. I'm guessing the question actually is whether or not it's pre-installed on their coach.
Probably.
And I'm 99.9% positive that it does have it. However, before you take that to the bank and hold me harmful, maybe just chat in your email address or shoot us a note and I'll confirm that. I think that's actually the case because of the fact that that has the residential model in it, and so we actually use the 2800 watt pure sine wave inverter, and it's a more sophisticated coach.
Another person wondering if there's a way to protect from theft with surge guards.
Good question. And either one of these surge guards actually have a locking clasp that you can buy. It's a very inexpensive accessory that you can add to the accessory, and it's just a locking clasp that allows it to not be removed from the power cord. So yeah, I mean, you can utilize that locking clasp without issue at all. So while we're here, Josh, if it's okay with all of you out there, we're just going to cover some of the power adapters. And really the goal here is basically to adapt your RV to wherever you're going to utilize the coach or the towable. And a lot of people, because we're utilizing the RVs for so many arrays of purposes, unfortunately in my house I actually use it as my in-law suite, but kind of gets them out of the house. But the nice thing about that is you can actually
they're not tuning in.
They may be, but that's okay. They love it. They thought it was fun to begin with, but now they understand the purpose. So a lot of people will actually install another outlet in their garage right outside their home. It may only be 30 amp. If you do it, you're going to do it right, and you have a 50 amp coach, go ahead and do it to 50 amp. It really doesn't run a lot of additional money, because if you think about it, you're still maintaining 110 volt current out to that location. But if you have to downgrade, this is if you had a 50 amp coach and you wanted to downgrade to 30 amp service, you'd buy this guy right here, very inexpensive, they're only $20. If you ever see these in stores and you're trying to figure out why one pigtail is shorter than the other, the reason why we make different lengths is because if you know you're always going to certain locations that have larger style boxes, it gives you a little bit more slack to get down below the lid for weather protection. So again, that's a 50 to 30, really inexpensive. They're only about 20 bucks. This is a way to kind of fast forward that entire process. Believe it or not, this power adapter takes you all the way down from 50 amp to 15 or 20. We do actually sell quite a few of these. The reason being, a lot of people will utilize these as just trickle chargers in their home, and they haven't installed a 30 amp outlet. If you're very simply going to go to 30 amp, then down to 15, you can also just add a little $4 guy to this one. So this is going to accomplish the same purpose, going from 50 all the way down to 15 or 20. The difference between the 15 and 20 very simply is 5 more amps worth of stuff that you can power in your coach. You can tell by looking at the outlet if it's kind of winking at you and it has that horizontal line going through one of the prongs. This will be a 15 or a 20 amp.
There's someone stating that they have a 50 amp coach, they've been at a resort before, and seen someone who also has 50 amp that looks like they have pigtails of 2 30 amp adapters. Yeah, so we also offer that kind of adapter. I didn't grab one, but if you often go to a resort that doesn't offer 50 amp service, but yet they offer 2 30 amp poles, and your coach is 50 amp, you can actually pick up one of those legs with the pigtail adapter that Casey and this guest is referring to, and gain 50 amp power to your coach. So really, again, the concept is your RV is 50 amp, your location doesn't offer 50 amp, but they do offer you 2 30 amp poles, if that makes sense. That's a really good question. Whenever are we done over here before I go to another random question?
Hey, let's go in the guest order.
Okay, I just want to go back to someone jumping back to a solar reference on the View Navion.
Sure.
And just wanting to confirm that, or wondering if it's safe to assume that the batteries in a View Navion are regular wet cell batteries.
They are wet cell batteries. Yep. And what most people do, especially those that are kind of knowledgeable about that, is when and we just spoke with the guest that did the 300 watt solar that I was referring to. It's more cost effective to just accept the wet cell batteries that you get from the manufacturer, run them for their life. Then what they end up doing is they'll either upgrade to 6 volt batteries that are in line, or they'll go to absorbed glass mat, which are kind of commonly referred to as AGM batteries. There is kind of a trend, although they're still very, very expensive, and not all of our solar controllers are geared towards them, but you are starting to now see some lithium ion batteries come into the marketplace. But you got to be careful about that, because you want to make certain that your converter charger that charges your RV batteries from inside the coach is compliant with that it can actually do it. And if you have solar, that the controller will actually read a lithium ion battery. But again, it's kind of fairly new. We've seen a lot of them in household tools because they're very, very long life. They don't actually, if they're just sitting out in the middle of nowhere, they don't deplete. We use a lot of lithium ion tools here in our dealership, and they're outstanding batteries, but they're just kind of starting to come into the marketplace within the RV industry. Good so far?
Yep.
All right, cool. We're going to slide over to the utility compartment again in this Vista. So this actually is a hardwired surge guard. And so kind of the benefit to it is that you never have to mess with it, because literally it's wired directly into your system. It kind of mounts in here like this. We wire it directly into the coach, whether it's 30 amp or 50 amp. We can do it with, again, 50 amp or 30 amp coaches, or travel trailers or fifth wheels or whatever you need. The only downside to it, again, is it stays with the coach generally unless you want to uninstall it. The hardwired versions themselves are not really a whole lot different in terms of price, because we have the labor on top of this. But installed, a 30 amp hardwired surge guard runs about $460, and the 50 amp version runs about $580. So again, that does alleviate the guest question that they chatted in earlier as to whether or not you can utilize them with adapters, because literally this is conditioning all 30 or 50 amps to the coach, and you never have to worry about the pole.
So we have someone stating the spot where their cord comes into their coach is pretty small.
Yep.
And wondering if that has to be installed in that same location, or if it can be put somewhere else.
It can be put somewhere else. Generally though, we want to stay fairly close to the compartment. Otherwise we could have some, labor costs that might not make it cost beneficial. But we've installed these in Views, Navions. Haven't installed them in a B-van to my knowledge. Remember, that's a detachable power cord. But we can get these in some pretty tight spaces. And our guys do a phenomenal job of keeping this clean installation. When we installed a surge guard in that same coach I was referring to earlier. We had tucked it behind because there's no management to it, but yet we gain full access to the bay that is provided. So again, surge guards, we can do portable, we can do hardwired. The cost is not significantly different. It's just whether or not you want to deal with that box, potentially run the risk of theft, although with a Clasp it's pretty minimal, and whether or not you want to keep it in the RV or move it from RV to RV.